guys, it's Carolyn. Welcome back to the podcast where we talk about all the ways to run a great business in the construction industry. So today we have a financial planner, Chad Hufford, who is the owner of Veritas Wealth Management. He's in Alaska, but works everywhere. And so I'm excited to learn some things about financial freedom, what that means, what that looks like, and how everyone can achieve it. Welcome to the podcast, Chad. How are you?
Carolyn, it is an honor to be here. Thank you so much for having me and to give me the opportunity to be an encouragement to your audience.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. So before we get started, tell us about yourself, how you got into this, and how you got to where you are now.
Well, I was raised in the financial industry. My dad was in the financial field when I was growing up, and I actually didn't have a particular interest in going into it myself. But what I did notice was how finances can change the trajectory of somebody's life. When somebody has confidence and clarity in their financial path, that confidence, that intentionality, that discipline, it doesn't stay just in their finances. It has a ripple effect into other areas of their life. And my dad taught classes long before there was this guy, Dave Ramsey, that everybody's familiar with. There was a guy named Larry Burkett, and he had a course called Crown Financial. And it was actually a little bit more of a Bible study than a financial study. It was really popular in churches, and my dad used to teach that in our Anchorage community up here in Alaska. And I saw the impact that having a more strategic and intentional process towards finances would really change people's lives and give them so much more freedom. But I went to college, I got my degree in biochemistry, I was heading into medicine, and I had a huge shift. I met the woman who's now my wife, the mother of my 6 kids that you and I just talked about offline before we got started. And I realized what she wanted was not a surgeon. She wanted a husband. And not to say that people can't balance it, but Carolyn, I'm wired in a way that I think had I gone that direction, I probably would have been very successful, but I would have had a practice that owned me instead of actually owning a business. And I know you've talked about that on your show a little bit. You had Ken Rusk on recently, and you alluded to that idea. And so many entrepreneurs, so many business owners are really owned by their business. I did not want that. So I took a huge shift, and I realized that finances would be a great way to empower people and to help them create a life of freedom and abundance and really become the best version of themselves.
That's pretty amazing. So we talk about this idea of financial freedom, but what does that mean?
Well, it means a couple things. So number one, we've stepped away from the idea of even talking about retirement, because the people that we work with, and I'm sure the people that you work with as well, they're the worst type of people, Carolyn, to sit around and do nothing.
Right.
Like the old Seinfeld, Boca del Vista, where George's parents are down in Florida. They have nothing going on other than to drive their son nuts, right? And there's nothing wrong with beach vacation, golf, and all those types of things, but having 20 years of Saturdays is not really what we're going for. I mean, if you don't want to work, you can quit your job right now, and the government will take care of you. And that's not a recommendation. I don't even agree with that, but I'm just saying, like, if your goal is to not have a job, you don't have to create this awesome financial plan. But it's this idea that you get to a point where you no longer need a paycheck, where you can live independently from your job, your business, or the paycheck that you produce every week or every 2 weeks. And having the financial freedom to not need a career, to not need that. Not to say you don't have it. And I think the other part of that is having something really important to retire to. Everybody knows what they want to retire from, but what are you retiring to? What is that thing that you're chasing that is going to wake you up in the morning, that is going to still challenge you? And a lot of people don't have that. So I think part of financial freedom is having a purposeful pursuit even after your career. And the last part is simply having enough. We had a guy from the oil industry, and I'm sure you know, in the oil industry, it's feast or famine, and it's a very volatile industry, and that there's a tendency there for people to feel like, I can always pad the accounts a little bit more. But we tell people, financial planning, there's no referee. There's nobody at the goal line putting up their hands and saying, touchdown, you've made it. So the tendency is for that proverbial goal line to keep getting pushed back. And this man told me, he said, I have something that most of my colleagues do not have. And I said, what's that? He said, enough. And it's that sense of having a measurable, finite goal. I know you talked about that with Ken Russ the other day. But in our finances, the importance of having a measurable, finite goal. Now, it doesn't mean that goal can't change and it can't move, but having a sense of these are the parameters of what I'm trying to accomplish financially. And once I've done this, I have done enough, because there will always be that temptation for more, more, more. And it doesn't matter how much money you make, you can still have scarcity when it comes to your finances and your feelings of security. And by having a plan for what enough is, I think people can experience abundance much, much sooner.
So how do you help people develop that plan? Because it's something that's kind of like if you're not intentional about it, it's not just going to happen.
Right. Yeah. Nobody's going to trip into being a multimillionaire. Nobody's going to trip into sustainable wealth that can last their lifetime and pass along to their children. It is about intentionality. You mentioned Napoleon Hill. You've been breaking down some of his lessons, and part of it is coming up with that strategic goal. Like, what would enough look like? One of the questions we ask people is, if you stopped working in your business, or if you sold your business, or if you quit your job, how much money would you need showing up in your bank account at the beginning of next month for you to live comfortably? Where you may not be able to do everything you want, but you could pretty much do anything you want, and you can live life on your terms. What amount of money would need to hit your bank account on a monthly basis in order for that to be possible? And then we actually reverse engineer that from where somebody wants to be in the future to where they are today. You called a roadmap on a recent podcast. It was more from a business and life goal standpoint, but we do the exact same thing from a financial standpoint. Where do you want to be in the future? Where are you right now? What is that roadmap that connects your current actions to where you want to be in the future? And it's what you also said, is breaking down this big objective into small bite-sized pieces. Because if we were to go through this process and we realize, Carolyn, based on your goals, your target is $4 million of invested net worth, whatever. I'm just making up that number, picked it off a bus, right? That can seem overwhelming. And that can be like, okay, that doesn't even sound like my problem today. It sounds like future me's problem. But when you break that down into what that person needs to execute, not just over the next 20 years, but over the next 12 months and over the next 30 days, now it's less overwhelming because you're not worried about $4 million. You're worried about maybe saving an extra 2,000. But it also makes every day matter. So there's more accountability within the plan. And then we provide that accountability too, because as you know, no plan survives encounters with reality. You have to continue to iterate. General Eisenhower, or President Eisenhower, when he was a general, said that no plan survives first contact with the enemy. And a financial plan, just like a business plan, requires constant iteration and accountability. People need to help you stick to that plan. And we remind people that they probably don't have a plan to run out of money in retirement, but you have to have a plan not to. And that's what a lot of people are missing, is they don't have a plan to not run out of money. They don't have strategic objectives. They're kind of just collecting investments. And sorry, this answer is getting long-winded, but you work in the construction field with a lot of construction people. Like, you wouldn't want to be in a building that was built without a blueprint, but so many of us, our financial lives have no blueprint. There is no plan, and we're kind of just accumulating materials and slapping them together. And there's a huge value in having that blueprint that guides saving, investing decisions going forward. And it does create tremendous confidence and clarity that has a ripple effect into many areas of somebody's life.
So is this something everybody can do? Like the guy that's getting a paycheck every 2 weeks that can barely make it, or is this something that you have to wait till you get older to do?
It's never too early or too late to start doing the right thing. And I believe the earlier you start, the better. I mean, there's a Chinese proverb that says the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, but the next best time is today. So whether somebody's listening, they're 22 years old, they're just getting started in their career, the earlier you start planning, the more intentional your life will be, and the less work you'll have to do later on because you have time working for you, not against you. But if you're 62 and you're like, man, maybe you're in the trades, maybe you're in construction, and you're like, I don't know how much longer I want my body to be buffeted by the stress, or maybe maybe you own the business and it's the stress of owning that, and you're like, man, I need a plan. It's never too late. But the older you are, the potentially the more adjustments you're going to have to make in your day-to-day life and in your habits and behaviors to get your plan aligned with your future goals, because time may not be your friend anymore, but it doesn't have to be your enemy.
So you say when people are intentional about their finances, that spills over into other areas of their life. What does that look like? What have you seen?
Okay, well, just picking on finances for a moment, I think there's a lot of people that look at the financial industry and there's so much noise and misinformation. They don't know who to believe. It's frustrating. It's very emotionally triggering. I mean, a lot of us grew up in homes where the only time finances were discussed when it was a problem,
Mm-hmm.
when there wasn't enough money, or when somebody, you know, maybe lost their job, or like finances was a source of stress. So it's easy for people to say, well, I'm not that interested in, I'm just going to ignore it. And we just say finances are like your health. Yes, it can be confusing and even seem overwhelming and intimidating, but ignoring either one of those will only let it deteriorate. So if you ignore your health, you're not you're not going to accidentally wake up one day with a six pack. Heart disease, diabetes, metabolic conditions, obesity, like all those things are a result of people being accidental and unintentional about their health. The same thing goes in finances. And when here's the interesting thing though about finances, because they do carry so much emotional weight. If you are stressed out about your finances, your brain cannot compartmentalize that stress. That stress will seep into many other areas of your life. It will have a physical toll on your body. It will seep into your relationships. I mean, financial struggles are one of the leading causes of divorce in this country. It will steal your joy and your confidence and even your business. I mean, think about running your business. How are you making decisions that are going to benefit your business for 10, 15, 20 years when you're worried about how am I going to pay off my credit card this month? And that stress, the uncertainty, it can really dominate somebody's life. But the flip side of that is also true. Like if you know that maybe you're not at a place where you have complete financial independence, but you have a plan to get you there, and there's a light at the end of the tunnel. You know what this path looks like. You'll be able to make better decisions. You'll be able to experience even failure and setbacks in your business better because you have a pathway. There's a roadmap to get you back on track.
Like everything in life.
It is. It is. And that's what makes it so hard, though, is this doesn't, my industry makes it very complicated. Finances don't have to be so complicated, but it doesn't mean they're easy. And it does mean that we're going to be swimming upstream because you said everything that we just talked about has implications in other areas in life, in your business, in your health, in your relationships, and even how raising kids, like all these things. But we're going against the grain of society. We're swimming upstream because our society has normalized unhealthy behavior in all those areas. We are one of the most obese, over medicated, stressed out, in debt societies that have ever existed. Yet we have the tools and the resources to reverse all that, but we don't do it because we've normalized bad behavior.
Yeah. Especially like what you're saying with like your health, and then they just prescribe drugs instead of all of these other things that you can do, like
Yeah,
diet and exercise and all of that
we
other stuff.
Well, we treat the symptoms and not the problem. And my financial industry does the exact same thing. Like nobody wants to see the value of their life savings go down during a market decline. And your 401k starts looking suspiciously like a 301k. You're like, this is terrible. So what my industry does is, well, just put it in cash or bonds. That's stable. Well, I think we can all agree, Carolyn, that the last few years that we're not in a stable cost world. We're in a rising cost world where costs, especially in the construction area and construction world, costs have been driven up dramatically. So why would we bring a fixed income into a rising cost world and not expect huge problems in retirement in our job optional lifestyle? But we do it because it's comfortable in the moment, because it
Yep.
treats this symptom. You're like, okay, this isn't going to fix a problem, but it allows you relief from the feelings of the discomfort of the volatility. But it's like giving a gunshot victim morphine. Like, you're not solving any problems. You're allowing that person to bleed out in a little bit more comfort. So sorry that's a little violent,
No,
but anyways, you're absolutely right. We've learned to treat the symptom, and we create momentary or temporary solutions for long-term problems, and it just flat out doesn't work.
But on the plus side, so how do you create blue collar millionaires?
Well, and this is what I was so excited about to come to talk to you, because there's a terrible stigma in our country that if you have a certain type of job, like the trades, and I love the way that guys like Mike Rowe push against this, but there is a stigma in this country that if you're in the trades that you've settled at some point. And I hate that, because we work with blue collar millionaires. Most of the people that we work with um, are in a blue collar type job. They're in construction, they're in HVAC, plumbing, they're electrician. We do a lot with law enforcement, do a lot in the oil field. They're people who don't have necessarily the highest level of education, but they actually have real wisdom. They're disciplined. They You could call it street smarts, you could call it common sense, which is not common anymore, but they're willing to do the hard things today to have a better life in the future. And we have folks that have never made $100,000 a year that are multimillionaires.
Mm.
On the other side of that, I meet with people who make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year and are still living paycheck to paycheck. And it comes down to one of our favorite words is intentionality. It's if you can be accidental with $500,000 a year and have nothing to show for it.
Mhm.
And all you need to do is look at some professional athletes to see guys that have made 100 million, 200 million in their career filing for bankruptcy. And then we've got truck drivers that never made more than $75,000 a year that again are multimillionaires. And more than that, they've learned to be content because they figured out how to live within their means when they were raising a family on a 5-figure income. And now that they have a 6-figure income in retirement, they still have that contentment because they've learned to live within their means, and they've learned to keep their ego beneath their income. And that's something that a lot of people never figure out how to do. But in the trades, in the blue collar world, there is less ego. Not to say that there aren't still egos, but people have learned that they're not going to use their money to show off to other people. And I think that's such a powerful thing. But what the trades do need to understand is that life of financial freedom and abundance is possible for them. And just because you don't have a PhD or a bunch of letters after your name, and maybe you don't even have a 4-year degree, but financial freedom, financial independence, and a life of abundance and meaning and purposeful pursuit is absolutely achievable for you if you're willing to do the hard things to get there.
So how do you work on changing mindset? So like somebody that works in the trades has the mindset that they'll never reach something like that.
I think one of the first things is showing them that it's possible, Carolyn, and asking them that question: what amount of income would you need to produce every month if you were to quit your job next month? What amount of income would you need to produce starting then for the rest of your life to feel like you never had a paycheck ever again? And then showing them what the path looks like. Now, it might be hard. They may have to change a lot of habits, but showing them there are behaviors and choices and habits that you control, that you can change to get your life on track with this trajectory that you said you want and is important to you, and just showing them that there is a pathway. It'd be like taking somebody who's always been overweight, and I'm sure this exists somehow, but using like some AI or CGI thing, showing them what they would look like at 10% body fat or 12% or something like that. Here's what you would look like um, with a six pack or something, and it's but showing them there's a lot of work to get you from here to there, but you can do it. And here's the pathway, or here's the blueprint. And a lot of people have never been shown that. And they either just spend their time kind of, again, collecting investments, or just picking little strategies like, oh, I'll do this, I'll do some Bitcoin, I'll try this. And they're always, again, same thing with like diet and exercise. They're trying the next fad.
Hmm.
And what they don't realize, if they took one plan and committed to that and fine-tuned that and executed that with relentless intensity, they would get there eventually. But without knowing what's possible and how to get there, I think the tendency is for people to try a lot of little things, but never commit to anything long enough to really see those plans come to fruition.
So tell me about some of your favorite success stories.
Well, one of them just happened a couple weeks ago. So we did a big event up in Fairbanks, Alaska. And one of our guys who recently retired from the oil field that often brings his entire family to these events. This particular one, we sponsored a baseball game, and it's kind of a semi-pro baseball game, and we had an entire section. It was super cool. My daughter threw out the first pitch, and anyway, but he wasn't there, and there's this whole crowd of I won't say his last name, but the whole crowd of his family that is usually there. And I called him the next day, and I just was like, "Hey, you know, you thought you're going to be there, and just we missed you. I was trying to make him feel bad." And he was like, "I'm so sorry. I felt terrible. My daughter broke down in Canada." And for those of you like never driven through Canada or Alaska, this is one of those places where you don't wait until your car is on empty to gas it up, because it might be like 200 miles before the next gas station. There's no cell service. And even in the summer, there's places where it can still get really cold, and conditions can be really harsh, where you break down, it can be a really dangerous thing. It's not an inconvenience. And he drove for about a day straight to get her stuff loaded up. And anyways, but the punchline is that he was like, Chad, when I was working on the slope, on the North Slope in the oil field, they're 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. He's like, when I was working on the slope, this would have been a crazy emergency to go get my daughter. But to be able to drop everything I'm doing and to go do that, and to be able to go rescue my daughter in the middle of nowhere, he's like, it's such a blessing. And to not have to worry about getting time off, or what's going to happen, or am I going to lose or am I going to get in trouble? He just did it. He just dropped everything he was doing, and his daughter was fine. The car is going to be fine. But just, there was an example of that financial freedom. And we hear those all the time. That's just one of the most recent ones. We've got a couple, single income family. His wife homeschooled his kids, and he was a truck driver, and they just came back from Oregon. And the wife's family was experiencing some really difficult times. In fact, she just lost her father, and her parents need a lot of care, and they were able to drop everything they were doing and go down there and do that. And it's beautiful to see those things happen, to see people actually experience and step into that life where they never need a paycheck ever again, and are able to do more now than they've ever done before, to be able to make an impact on the lives of those around them, and to, I hate to use the cliche, but to really pay it forward and take their blessings and share them with those around them. And it's a great journey to experience with people. And we tell people we believe finance is a team sport.
Hmm.
We experience setbacks together, we difficulties together, but we share victories together. And that's why I can't retire, because I can't think of anything more fulfilling than what I'm doing right now.
No, I understand. I understand. I don't know. I don't even know what I would do. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know.
we're the worst types of people to not have that purposeful pursuit, but I think everybody has that in
Yeah.
them. And also, you go back to mindset. It's the idea of chasing something versus running away from something. A lot of people are running away from a career. I've got a guy, it's actually become a close friend of mine. I'm working on him, but he's in law enforcement, and he has like a calendar where he's checking down the days. I'm like, dude, you're like a prisoner in a jail cell that has this, like, okay, I've got 3 years left of my sentence. They're Xing out every day, like, in the old movies,
Uh,
all the prisoners had that hanging on their jail cell wall. I'm like, you're in law enforcement, but you're acting like you're in prison. and he's just checking down the days. And it's the mentality that I'm running away from my career. I'm trying to escape this. What I want people to have is such a vision for what their future could be, that they're chasing that, they're pursuing that. And to the outside world, it might look the same. They're running hard, but chasing something is a lot different than running away from something. And my kids, I've got you know this. I've got 6 of them. We watch a lot of nature shows, and the other day we were watching a show, and it was a leopard chasing like a warthog or something like that, and they were both running as hard as they possibly could, but only one of them was having any fun because that warthog was running for his life, and it was fear and it was anxiety and scarcity. That leopard was having fun because he was chasing something. And if we're chasing this better version of our life, a more free and abundant version of our life, it's so much more fun. And it's easier to make the sacrifices in the moment because it totally shifts the mindset to a mindset of pursuit rather than fleeing.
Gotcha. That's a great example. So what are some actionable wealth building tips that you can give us, or principles that, people that are kind of considering this or that want to start, what does that look like?
Well, just to remind people too, it's never too late to start doing the right thing. And if you're 22 or 62 or 72, becoming more intentional will always serve you. And one of the many things that bothers me about my industry is we teach people to focus so much on what they can't control. So while we're recording this, we're in the middle of this crazy election year. People have been dropping out of races. They've been getting shot at. Like, it's crazy, right? Yeah. And there will never be a time where this isn't a crazy world. But that's what my industry tells people to focus on. What's going on in the election, or what's going on in this current crisis, or in this war, or with interest rates, with inflation, with tax rates. What did the market do this week or 7 seconds ago? And all of those things might have an impact in somebody's financial future, but none of those things can you control as the individual. So it's about taking ownership and agency for where you're at in your life and making intentional, measurable changes to change your circumstances. Because unless we change, our circumstances aren't really going to change very much. Like, you can give somebody a faster car, doesn't necessarily make them a better driver. We have to have a better relationship with money and really with the future versions of ourselves. And that goes way beyond just finances. And being willing to look at our life and say, here's the elements that are not aligned with the person that I want to become and where I want to be in the future, and start making an actual plan to change those things. Because I just believe that you deserve to be in the driver's seat of your own life. And a lot of people have been relegated kind of the passenger seat. They've let life happen. They've let life take them different ways. And not to say that you can control everything, but so many of us focus so much on what we can't control that we've missed the things that we can control. And the last thing I would mention, just specific to creating a financial plan, is come up with measurable, specific goals that you can reverse engineer into where you are today. Whether you do it with someone like me, getting help from a financial professional, or getting a team of friends around you can hold you accountable, but being able to take a long-term objective and break it down into bite-sized weekly or monthly chunks so you can see, am I executing the things that are going to keep me on this path? And I mean, I think that's how somebody's life can change.
So let me ask you a question. So, like, if somebody wanted to sign up with you, do they already have to have money saved? How does that, like, if somebody wanted to work with you, how does that work?
Most of the people we work with are relatively established, but they might have just kind of a collection of investments. They don't really have a strategic plan, or they're just not sure if their plan is really customized and tailored to them. Some people have a plan already and it's good, but they want it to go from good to great. But we also work with people who are just getting started. So we've got folks who are Dave Ramsey certified coaches who work with people who are just climbing out of debt. Like, they're not even trying to build their financial house. They're trying to just put out the fires in their life. So whether somebody is selling their business for a 7-figure, 8-figure sum, and they're stepping into that job optional lifestyle, or somebody who is coming out of college buried in student loans, we've got people that can help them be more intentional, more purposeful about their financial journey.
Perfect. And where would people go if they want to find about more about you or Veritas?
Well, veritasalaska.com, that's our website. And we were founded here in Alaska, but as you mentioned already, Carolyn, we work with people all over the United States. Veritas.Alaska on Instagram, and we're also pretty active on LinkedIn. You could just search Chad Hufford, and I'll pop right up.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Carolyn, it really was a blessing to be on here, and I appreciate all your questions and to be able to converse this with you and keep up the great work that you're doing. It's been an honor to be a part of it today.
Oh, thank you so much.